So Neel, we spoke a lot about your audience and process, and uh, there's also the theatre community, and there is this sort of affirmative gestures in terms of awards for playwrights that have emerged in the last 15 years or so, or maybe 20. And then there's, so there's this sort of reception of awards which is looked at as with a sense of aspiration, and then there are titles conferred like young emerging, actor, writer. What do these terms mean to performers, theatre practitioners today, and how do you look at it, like in terms of your experience of having received some of these accolades, and how does that influence your practice in any way?
I think because certainly in Delhi and it has been in other cities for a while, there's a very sort of fragmented sense of community within the performance arts world, and particularly in theatre. Feeling like you belong to a sense of community, or feeling like you have peers who are responding to your work, whether it's positively or critically, and critically is to me also a positive kind of response. But general awareness of your practice and the things that you're doing, and that dialogue and conversation, I think that's just always just a very healthy thing. And I think that in Delhi over the past 6 or 7 years, certainly I feel like that's been one of the goals with Tadpole, is apart from building our own sort of practice and our own work, how does one foster the sense of community, whether it's through workshops or whether it's through inviting people in to work with us or collaborating. This has been very, very important to us as a company, and certainly to me as an artist, because as I mentioned before, we have a very assimilative practice. We learn a lot from others, and we learn from our interactions with others. And I think that's something that I value a great deal. And I value it not just within Delhi, but also when we travel. So we have a lot of friends and associates and collaborators in Bangalore, in Pune, in Mumbai. And I think I'm always excited to meet new people across mediums also, not just within the theatre, but in literature, dance, music. Because I think I think feeling a sense of belonging to a larger kind of cultural space places you in context. Then you don't end up being insular. And I've been in enough insular situations and practices to know how dangerous that can be. I was part of a theatre company in college that was extremely snooty and insular, and really suffered because of it. And it was a huge kind of lesson for me. In terms of accolades and sort of how one is framed by your own community, I think that this is not really something that anyone can be in control of. I know very few people who create work in order to achieve that, who write a play to win an award, or to make a piece of work to be identified or distinguished. Because making work in the theatre, as it is with possibly any other art form, the task itself is a task. It's you're setting yourself out to do something. I think what you get out of that really is what's immediately valuable to you. But having said that, particularly when you're starting out, or when you are in fact putting a lot into the work that you do for very little monetary sort of reward, to be acknowledged in any way, even if it's to be invited to a festival, or to be sort of written about in any form of sort of public media, is encouraging. And I think it possibly it's become quite sort of cool and fashionable to be aloof about these things, and but I've never I've never not been grateful for these moments. Uh, so, for example, the Hindu Metro Plus Award, when Taramandal received it, it was also it was a huge turning point for us, because within that time frame, the Hindu Metro Plus Award happened, and we received a grant from Goethe Institute to do another production. And this literally happened one day after another. And it was a time when we had a period of time when we had decided to take a great risk and work independently, and to sort of set ourselves up and set up a practice and set up dates and book a theater. And the coincidence of this, and the happening of it, it doesn't solve larger questions. It doesn't tell you that in 10 years you're going to be a successful theatre company just because somebody's given you an award right now, or somebody has put you on a list or said, oh, look, this is a promising theatre company. I don't think it does that. But at an immediate level, it tells you, okay, you're here, carry on. And I think that's important. And as a company, we've been fortunate. We don't perform as much as we like to, but our work does travel. People do engage with it. People respond to it. There is some amount of critical dialogue, enough to make us want to work more and work harder. And I think that that's really the most positive way one can work within this framework. Yes, there is elation and there is a great sense of pride in being identified, in being recognized, as much as there is fear and insecurity when one is not. But I think that that's absolutely normal, and for anyone to be above this is somehow I don't know how you can not be affected by this. I think you can be affected by it positively, but see it as a sign of encouragement, as opposed to a sign of any sort of definitive, okay, you've arrived, now you've reached, now you don't have to struggle anymore. Now people must take you seriously, of course, because you are, a recipient of this, or a member of that, or a fellow or whatever. And I think that I don't know many people who do that. I don't think, because you have to go into rehearsal next day and you have to tell your actors something, and you still have to make something that engages an audience. I don't think it solves any any larger sort of artistic issues for you. It's encouragement, and often it raises the stakes a little bit, which I think is important. It's important when your audience increases, the stakes increase. When you're invited to close a festival, the stakes increase, and I think that's good. It keeps you on your toes.
Right. So that brings me to the question of the journey itself, and like you said, that it's not without struggle, and it's got its moments where, though there are these kind of milestones of affirmation, there is a lot of other things going on. So, and there's also the need to try and see where this is going to go. So, what do you think is the sort of vision for the company, and how have the struggles kind of affected where you'll go next?
I mean, I don't want to romanticize the struggles too much, because obviously when you're both artistically and in terms of as people trying to make a living, there have been many struggles, and it can when you look back on it, you can look on a sense of pride of having moved past that. But when you're actually going through it, it can be pretty sort of dismal and depressing. But I mean, it's in some sense, it's part of the choice that you have made to do this. And I think that when you're within it, you act, you make decisions, you make choices. And so you're active. And I think the moment you stop being active is when you give up. And fortunately, I've never been at that point. There have been points where I've really struggled, and particularly artistically, there have been moments where you really question what you're doing, why you're doing it, are you doing it the right way? And I think as a company, we go through that in cycles. We've started our projects thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing. A few years ago, we did a tour of Bangalore with 3 productions, 2 of which were brand new, and we thought it was going to be this magnificent sort of showcase, and it really took everything out of us to the point that we came back from that tour. Even though we were happy with the work, we were extremely depleted, and we had really strained relationships, we had strained processes, and it pushed us to a moment of reflection and what are we doing, why are we doing it, what pace are we doing it.
Right.
And I think that those moments are extremely important, and I think that we've invested in the life of this company as being more as one production after another, and I think that the members, the core group that run it, we talk often, we reflect, and there are often points of difference, but I think that one unified thing is that we're very particular that we want to, as storytellers and theatre practitioners, we want to invest in this because we feel that at an immediate level it improves us, and it, in the engagement that we have with the outside world, whether it's through workshops or performances, it has some value, it creates something. And this is above and beyond the artistic worth of the work itself, which obviously has its own value. And we've been doing it enough and have shown work enough to know that, and to relate to the previous question, that there is both encouragement but also enough people watching to respond and engage with us critically. And I think that that's important. I have a very schizophrenic sense of this idea of career, because there are times when I feel that, wow, it's been 10 years, there's been a lot of work that's been created, and I feel a sense of both tiredness but also achievement. And there are days when I go into rehearsal and I feel like I'm still somehow at the beginning, and I'm just learning things afresh. And I think both things are important, because one is sort of perspective and the other is committing to the immediacy of creating work. And I think the moment one of those sort of gets a bit diffused or diluted, it becomes somehow, there's something goes off for me, because one has to, as you suggested, have a sense of where are we headed, where have we come from, which is the kind of more zoomed out version of how you see yourself and your work. But also, what am I doing in rehearsal today? How did I feel about that exercise? Is this story working for me right now? And I think that I hope that remains continuous, because I think the moment you feel a sense of settlement or something about how you see yourself or your work or the people that you work with crystallizes, it's the end, because it really, if there's no mystery left or no doubt or curiosity, then, I mean, why are you doing this? Which is, I suppose, true of almost any profession, really. You have to stay engaged and still have perspective of what it is that you're doing. But, I mean, I can speak of it only acutely as a storyteller and writer.
Great. So I was just reflecting back on the conversation, and something I wanted to ask early on was the way you've described yourselves on your website, where along with artistic director, there's a tag of father of the nation. And then some of the other people involved have very interesting tags.
Yeah. This is from several years ago. I think that blog site is a bit defunct now, because we don't really update it. And it was at a time where we felt like, even though we take our work seriously, we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously. And we wanted to present a slightly sort of whimsical face to the group. You'll have to ask our company manager, Bikram, about what those names really signify. I think that quality remains. I think that we don't, especially in some of our publicity work, we try not to give too much weight to this idea of, how is one framing oneself. Really, at the end, you want to engage people and you want them to come and see your shows, and leave the adjectives up to them. you know. Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't seen that website for a long time. Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much for your time,
thanks.
and thanks for talking to us
Thank
about
you
the
so
process.
much.
It's been a great conversation, and
Thank you.
I'd love to have you here again, maybe
Love to be here.
with the next production, and to talk more about how it's moved in that direction for you. Thank
Great.
you so
Thank
much.
you.